Hey, this is Mrs. Smeckens. And in the very first lesson series, we talked about your reading voice and thinking voice. And we talked about how that thinking voice really helps you figure out what all of the text says during reading. Well, I want to talk about how that thinking voice helps you even after reading. It helps you when maybe you want to use some of the ideas from the author and restate them. Say them in your own writing. Some people call this summarizing. That's the focus of the next several lessons. We're going to work on ways that readers summarize author ideas. Okay, now we're actually going to talk about a summary itself in the next lesson. I want to talk about this idea of a paraphrase. Let's just kind of dive into a paraphrase. That's the focus right here. So what is a paraphrase? I know, put it in your own words. Well, back up. When in the world do you want to paraphrase? Okay, so let's back up and just make sure we understand what it is and what its purpose is, and then we'll get better at actually executing it. Okay, so you're writing a report, you're writing an essay, and you have to base it on information you read, and you find something, and you're like, ooh, that's really good. I want to use that from this original text and put it into my essay, my report, my writing. Okay, well, one way you could do it is by actually putting quotation marks around it, right? Direct quote, cite the source, good to go. But there are other ways to do it, and one of them is a paraphrase. And that's what this lesson is about. So what is a paraphrase? When would you use it? And how do you do one? Okay, so a paraphrase is a retell. Look, this idea of retelling what the original author said. Now, that word retell is not what we typically say at our grade level. We say paraphrase. Okay, and I want to explain why. Because the notion of a retell, you learn like in second grade. And that was after you read this real simple little story. And then the teacher would say, let's retell the story. And let's say it was, I don't know, like a 15-sentence story on all the pages with the pictures. It was 15 sentences. Okay, so then your teacher would walk you through what happened on this page, what happened on this page, what happened on this page, beginning, middle, and end. You go through the whole thing and you would retell it. Here's what I want you to know. If we actually counted up all the sentences you said in second grade when you were retelling the whole story, I bet it was about 15 sentences. My point is this. A retell is about the same length as the original text. Okay, now wait a minute. This is why we don't work on retelling in our grade level. Because our texts are long, people. We're not going to retell the whole thing with all the little details on every page and every chapter. Nuh-uh. But there are times that we want to retell this part, this excerpt, and put it in our writing. So when you look at the length of what you want to paraphrase, put in your own words, retell, well, what you write should be about as long as the original excerpt you're pulling from. Sometimes when you write a paraphrase, you're really vague, and the original text excerpt was this long, and you're just kind of vague, and you're mentioning things. Okay, that's not a great paraphrase. Remember, paraphrase means to retell a part of the text. And remember, retell meant lots of little details. If it took the author this much space to say whatever it is you're trying to paraphrase, then your paraphrase should be about the same length, people. About the same length. Because otherwise you're not being precise. You're not giving specific details. You're leaving information out. You're not being accurate. Something is missing. A paraphrase is a very thorough retell. The difference is, and the reason we don't say retell in our grade level, is because the word retell is associated with whole text that are short and in second grade. We retell chunks of long text, and we call it a paraphrase. So that's the word. It does mean retell, but it's just a chunk. Okay, so we retell a chunk, we paraphrase something. And this idea that it needs to be about the same length. That's our first kind of new understanding that I want to add to our anchor chart. What you retell, paraphrase, should be about the same length as whatever the chunk is that you're pulling and putting into your own writing. Okay, so now let's talk about the in your own words. You've heard it for years, but what does it mean? It doesn't mean put it in your own penmanship. I wrote it. No, those are his words. You just hand wrote them out. No. The secret to a really well-written paraphrase, besides it's accurate, you have all the specifics, is that you used synonyms. Yeah, that's what in your own words means. Remember what you're doing. As a reader, you have to write something. All right, you're writing something and you want to use some of the text or the source information you found. You're like, ooh, that's really good. I want to put that in my writing. Did you hear the secret there? My writing. What I put in my writing should sound like me. My words, my synonyms. Now, I'm not saying you have to use second grade word choice. Just say it the way you would explain it. That's what we're talking about in your own words. It's all about synonyms, word choice. Say it the way you would say it. And that leads me to how in the world do you actually pull off a paraphrase? There are 5 steps. I want to teach you the 5 steps, and I'm going to do it quickly with hand signals first. And then I'll show you the 5 steps on the screen. So quickly, hand signals first. 5 steps. Do it with me. Here we go. First, you have to read the text. Well, right? You can't paraphrase what you don't read, so you have to read the text. I know it's not always a book. It might be on a screen, but we'll just make the hand signal like this. This represents step 1, read the text. All right, here's step 2 to paraphrasing. Remove the text. I'll do that again. You're going to take one hand and you're going to push it away and drop the other hand at the same time. Okay, that's step 2, remove. Read, remove. All right, this is important. You got to stop looking at the original. If you keep looking at the original text, you are not going to put it in your own words. You're going to memorize and just repeat the author's words. And that's not a paraphrase. So you got to stop looking at it. Here we go. Read. Step 2, remove. Okay, here's step 3. Make your hands like talking. Okay, say out loud what you just read. Explain it to yourself. Okay, so that was about what you just read and stopped looking at. Now say out loud to yourself what it was about. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's what you're going to write down. That's step 4. Turn your talking hand into a pencil. Write it down. Write down what you just said, or type it, but write down what you just said. All right, that was the 4th step. Let's do all 4. There's 5, but let's do these 4. Read, remove, say it, write it. Now this is important. You had to write it before you look back at the text. You want to write what you said. You just said it in your own words. Write that down. That is your own words, people. You got it. Okay, step 5. So we're writing. Okay, now you're going to return to the text. So watch my hand. My writing hand turns into a big swoop and goes back into a book. Right? Step 4, return to the text. It looks like read, but it really means return. Why? Why do we go back to the text? To make sure what you wrote, you spelled their name right. You got the date right. You've got to put the source in there. Where did you get this? Who said this? You got to cite your source, right? In a paraphrase. So first you got to get it down. So sometimes when you're writing it, you're like, was it 98%, 95%? I can't remember. So then you're going to return to the text in a minute. So go ahead and get down as many details as you can remember in your own words. Did his last name have 2 T's in it or 1? I'll just go with this. I'll just go with this for now. And then I return to the text. And those are the things I check. All right, look at your screen. Here we go. How do you paraphrase? Read. Remove the text. If it's on the screen, minimize it. Turn away from it. If it's in a book, stop looking at it. Flip it over. Whatever it is, but you got to stop looking at the original, or you are not going to put it in your own words. You're just going to repeat the author's. All right? Remove. Then explain what you just said, what you just read. Then write it down or type it. Okay, in your own words, then return to the text to check spellings, stats, facts, and get any source information. Now, I'm not going to talk about, how to cite your source and all of that. That's a different lesson. I want to really work on the first 4 steps, but we know you have to cite your source. Okay, so that's part of why you return. All right, so now that we have a pretty good idea as to what a paraphrase is, now I want to show it to you. I'll do it first, and I'm going to use an excerpt, because remember, a retell is the whole text, but a paraphrase is when you retell just a chunk. Okay, so I'm going to pull a chunk from this article. This whole article is all about the Olympic sport, the skeleton, and you might have heard of it. You may not have. It's different than the luge. Okay, so I just put up 2 pictures there so you can see the difference. The luge is when you lay on that sled thing in the Olympics and you go through the ice tunnel, but look how you're laying. You're on your back and your feet go first down the ice tunnel. Okay, a skeleton, which is the article I'm going to pull some excerpts from. A skeleton, same kind of sled, exact same course. You're using the same icy tunnel, but now you're on your belly and your head goes first. Oh, mercy. Oh, mercy. Okay, so I have that whole text and I'm just going to pull an excerpt, okay, and you're going to watch me do the steps. All right, so I got to read. Here I go. I just pulled a paragraph. Here we go. Step 1, read the text. This sport is just fast and mean and a little bit insane. And if you mess up, if you're clumsy and brush the wall, there is pain and often blood. An athlete may wrap parts of his body in duct tape as the ice on the walls tends to eat the sweater right off his arm. Okay, step 1. So now step 2 is remove. I got to stop looking at the text, right? Okay, so now step 3. What do I have to do? I have to explain what I just read. Okay, so the skeleton, and it's insane, and the sweater might get ripped off. Okay, I'm not speaking in sentences. And I mean, I picked up on some of the details, but here's the thing. If when you're reading, you aren't totally paying attention to what you're reading, then after reading, when you're trying to paraphrase it out loud to yourself, you're going to sound like I did. And that's kind of like, well, and that doesn't translate into thoughtful sentences in a paraphrase. You have to be reading and really thinking about it, really understanding what you're reading. Otherwise, you can't do step 3. It's a normal problem. Your distracted voice was probably distracting you. Or there was just a lot coming at you in the first read, and you didn't quite get it. If you can't explain it to yourself completely, clearly, thoroughly, then do not start writing anything down, people. No, look back at your screen. You got to repeat the first 3 steps. If you didn't comprehend what you read, you can't write a paraphrase, because remember, after you read, you remove, and you don't look back at it until you've written it. So watch Mrs. Smeckett. She wasn't really focused, clearly. All right, so now I'm going to do it again. Same paragraph. Now I'm going to really focus in so that I can explain it to myself. This sport is just fast and mean and a little bit insane. Okay, it's a sport. It's a little crazy. It's a little insane. And if you mess up, if you're clumsy, brush the wall. Okay, so messing up is being clumsy or brushing the wall. It hurts. It's a pain and often blood. And an athlete may wrap parts of his body in duct tape. He wraps it around like his arms so that when he brushes up against that, it doesn't hurt as much, and it doesn't have blood. It might eat the sweater right off, but at least he's protected himself. Okay, read and understand. You have to use your thinking voice during reading. Remove. Now my thinking voice kicks in after reading, and it's what's going to help me say this. Okay. Skeleton is a sport that's kind of crazy. And it's very precise because you could be in a lot of pain and have a lot of blood if you brush up against the wall. Sometimes people wrap themselves in duct tape to avoid ripping their clothes or injuring themselves too badly. I just did it. I just did it. So now I write it. I'm going to try to remember what I just said. I'm going to write it right here. Okay? Skeleton is a sport that's a little crazy. Okay? Again, don't look back at the text. I'm remembering what I said. And I'll say, you have to be precise. So you don't hit the wall, hurt yourself, or bleed. Some people put duct tape on their arms as protection. Okay. I did step 1, I did step 2, I did step 3, I did step 4. Now I want to check. I want to go back to the original text and check. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the original text, and there weren't any names, okay, and there weren't any numbers, but I just want to kind of just make sure I got all of the really important specific details. Sport is fast, mean, little, insane. Yeah, I said crazy. Okay, clumsy, brush the wall, pain, blood. Yeah, I said precise, wall. I said hurt, pain, blood, bleed. Yeah, athlete wrap parts of his body, duct tape, rip the sweater. Okay, I did say duct tape as protection, which implies, I didn't actually say sweater, but I think I got it. I think I got it. Wait. I got to check something else. Okay, I got to check that I'm about the same length. All right, let's count the number of words on the screen. Okay, the original. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 40, 41, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I got about 56 words, okay? 33. That's a pretty good paraphrase. I'm about 20 words short. That, gosh, out of 50 some, that's about half. Okay, so Mrs. Meccan's going to add a little bit more. Okay, skeleton is a sport that's a little bit crazy. And you know what, that idea that and mean, it's a little bit crazy and a little bit scary, painful, and crazy. Okay, so I just added 3 words. You have to be precise so you don't hit the wall and hurt yourself or even draw blood. Okay, I could say that, or I could say, or just even bleed. Some people put duct tape on their arms as protection so they don't rip off their sweater sleeves, I guess is where I'm going with that. Okay, so that's definitely a little closer. I've added 3, 6, probably another 15 words. So I'm definitely getting closer. Okay, do you see what I mean? That you can't be too vague. If your if your paraphrase looks drastically shorter than the original, you've probably left out a little too much information. A paraphrase is a retell. You want to be precise. Okay, help me with the next one, you guys. Help me with the next one. All right, as we go on here, I'm going to take another passage, okay, chunk from the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and turn the page, okay, turn the page, and let's do step 1. What's step 1? Read, all right? So here we go. I'll read, you follow along. Picture it at almost 80 miles an hour with wicked turns at G-forces so powerful that you cannot raise your helmet from the ice, which glitters just an inch away. What's step 2? Remove. Good. Now what? Yep. Okay, go ahead. No, I'm not putting it back on. Oh, I read it too fast? You ever read something too fast and then you're like, I don't really know what that was saying. All right, so what do we got to do? We got to reread. We got to go back and repeat steps 1, 2 to get to 3. All right, I'm putting it back up. Here we go. Picture it at almost 80 miles an hour with wicked turns at G-forces so powerful you cannot raise your helmet from the ice, which glitters just an inch away. Remember, you're laying on your stomach and it's just an inch away and you can't raise your head because you're going so fast. G-forces. All right, remove it. Now, speak to yourself in sentences. What would you write? Let's start. Okay, let's just start it. Something like riding a skeleton. When riding a skeleton, go ahead. When riding a skeleton, you're going how fast? Be specific. Do you remember? Okay, put the number in you think it is. Blank miles an hour. Straight. Are you going straight? With turns. Good. Okay, tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me about the idea of your head. And you're going so fast. G-forces. Good. You're going so fast. What about your head? What about your helmet? You can't even raise your head to get away from the inch. That's the ice. That's just 1 inch. I said it, didn't I? 1 inch away from your face. Okay. We got to write it, you guys. I mean, we said it, but we said it kind of broken. All right. And that's okay. But now we kind of know where we're going with this. So let's capture it. Step 4 is write it down. All right. Or type it, but we're going to write it. What do we got? Okay. When writing the skeleton. Now what? How fast? Speed, speed, speed. Do you remember? When writing the skeleton, some of us can't remember the number, how fast it was. We'll come back to it. All right. So just put a blank. That's normal. Don't worry about it. At blank miles per hour. Straight. Are you going straight? Around. Yep. Around curves. Okay. Good. When riding the skeleton at blank miles an hour around curves. Tell me more. The head. You can't lift your head. You can't even lift your head. Okay? You can't even lift your head. So what does that mean? So your head, remember your face first. Your head, what are you seeing? What did it say? You're staring at the ice. And how close? 1 inch. Good. That means you're staring at the ice 1 inch away. Okay, now, we read, remove, said it. We just wrote it. What do we do now? We will return to the text. We're going to check for a few things. And the first thing we've got to check is our numbers. All right, I got it back up there. So what was the speed? 80. Good. Got it in there. Okay, now let's look at this. Picture it, almost 80 miles an hour, wicked turns. Okay, look, 80 miles. We said curves, our words. Good. Okay, G-forces so powerful you cannot raise your helmet from the ice, which glitters 1 inch away. Okay, around curves, you can't even lift your head. That means you're staring at the ice 1 inch away. We didn't say G-forces. We probably could get that in, but let's count the words. Let's see, because remember, a paraphrase is a retell, and it should be about the same length. Count the words. I got about 30. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 to 30. You guys, that's it. That's it. This is what we're doing. What we're learning to do today is paraphrase and the 5 steps to paraphrasing. I'm going to add it to our chart. You know it, and the hand signals will help you remember it. You have to first read. When you're done reading, say, ooh, that's pretty good. I want to use this. Reread that chunk, remove it, explain it, write it before looking back, and return to check accuracy, sourcing, spellings, those kinds of things. I think the secret that maybe you didn't know about paraphrasing before, besides is it should be specific and about the same length, is the idea that you need to use synonyms. You need to use your own words. That's the secret to paraphrasing. When we say in your own words, we mean synonyms, people, your own word choice. And when you do that, you naturally change the sentence structure. It just sounds a little different. It was a really long sentence. Now you wrote it as too short, too shorter sentences. And so just this idea that you have some sentence variety, this is what makes it so that you own it and it sounds like you. All right, if you were in Mrs. Smecken's class, here's what we would be doing next. I'm going to have a couple downloads for you. So I want you to be able to access the 5 steps to paraphrasing. So I've given you this handout, but more importantly, I want you to practice. So I have the entire skeleton article. All right, we read 2 paragraphs, people. You're going to read the whole thing, and it's 2 pages. It's almost 40 paragraphs long. All right, and after you're reading it, after you finish reading it, I want you to choose 4 paragraphs to paraphrase. You choose. I don't care. 4 paragraphs. And you're going to write a paraphrase for one of them here and one of them here, or you can just do it on scratch paper or Google Slide or a Google Doc or whatever your teacher might want and write one here. So 4, if you use my handout, you can write them there. But if you're typing them, that's fine too. But here's the thing. I want to know what paragraph you are attempting to paraphrase. That's why it says paragraph number here. I want you to tell, and that's why I numbered all of the paragraphs. Now, some of them don't have numbers. If it doesn't have a number, don't choose it. All right, you have to use only 4 from the choices with numbered paragraphs. And that's because we already did that one. That's why I didn't number it. Or it's too short. It's not enough of a challenge, people. All right, so choose 4 from the options of numbered paragraphs. You're only doing 4, but go ahead and read the whole article because it's cray-cray. You're going to be amazed at this crazy sport. All right, if you were in Mrs. Smecken's class, that's what we'd be doing today. But your teacher might have a better idea.